Hey y'all, this is episode 8 of the relationship between mental health and things of the spirit. I'm excited for this one. This one's going to be about signs that you're not truly healed. I've talked about what it looks like to be healed, to truly be healed, and that there needs to be a freedom, an actual release from, whatever deception, whatever hurt, whatever that you were in, that will truly seal the deal versus just I'm over it. I don't want to talk to that person anymore or something like that. A lot of us unfortunately kind of stop there and think like that's healing. We just stop talking to that person and we're good. Like, anyways, I'm gonna tell a little bit of a story. I'm gonna try to be quick and then I'll get into it. I think there's about 8 points here, 8 or 9 points. So let me just tell this story. This is how the Lord showed me, one, that I needed to talk about it, and two, that I wasn't fully healed, and three, his healing power. So, um, on a personal note, like I am not someone who has the most healthiest, at least in the past, I would say. Now it's a little bit different, but I'm really trying to understand what it is to be emotionally healthy and all that stuff, due to my circumstances. I didn't really, unfortunately, have that um example shown to me. But I would have a tendency to kind of hold on to things, probably for various reasons, but I would hold on to things. So I didn't ever really heal quickly. Normally, like, it would be a whole, like, it'd be a whole thing with whatever, whatever I went through. Always take me a while to process and heal. So that's how I am naturally, to be honest. I've gotten better with maturity, but that's how I am naturally. But the Lord, in the way that he heals, it's supernatural in that he just gets straight to the core of it. So you're healed in a time that doesn't make sense for the kind of injury that you have gotten, that you've sustained. And this is true also for physical healing, of course, as well. So, anyways, I had a couple. Well, no, let me back up a second. Between last year and this year, I have had one bad event after one bad event after one bad event after one thing after another, like continually. And this has been the hand of God. I shouldn't say like bad, but just not great. I'll just put it that way. A lot of unfortunate things, situations have taken place between last year and this year for me. And it's been the hand of God because it's been a lot of training and a lot of pruning and all that stuff. But last year I had really a lot of emotional and spiritual hits, I should say. And because I went from one to another to another to another, I had a really, really hard time with last year and even, of course, this year. There was a couple things that I needed healing from, and I had never really known what it was to to seek the Lord for healing, like emotionally. It was where it's like, I need you to intervene. I need you to put some thoughts, put some considerations in me that will really help me with this situation. And I prayed that for one situation, and because I was being tormented. Like I knew I was being tormented with thoughts, like I personally was giving into them, but I'm sure the enemy was also, putting his nasty hand in the situation as well. But I knew that like it is not normal to like think back on a situation that happened, think back on words that were said, actions that were done. And, it's been 3, 4, 5 months, a new year, and you're still so upset about it. I'm like, something's wrong here. So eventually I just said, Lord, take it over. He took it over. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I had zero idea. I just said, look, I just got to have freedom from this. This is crazy. I can't be tormented like this. And It was about a week later that I finally felt like a release. It was like, oh, I don't even think about that situation anymore. And if I do, it's just like, God bless them. That's it. So that was one situation from last year. And since I knew he could come through in that way, there were a few other situations, one from last year, that happened before that I didn't get healing from because it was like one situation to the next to the next. I had made it up in my mind that I was good because I was kind of brushing it off, and I just, prayed for the person, prayed for myself, took captive every thought, all that kind of good stuff. But I knew I wasn't freed. That element of the healing hadn't been made known to me. And this is why I say that it's really, really important that you are fully, fully healed. Because if you're half healed, that can honestly be, you can pose more of a threat to yourself and to others than you even realize. Jesus. And so I was half healed. There was like, I suppose the logic of the situation to a degree. But like in my heart, if I thought about it, I would start to get upset. I would like, feel bad or whatever. And it was a constant ish thing, like, at least once a day is like I'd be brought back to those conversations or whatever. That was one situation. The other situation was what I've talked about a lot in this series about like the toxicity within my own home. And if you saw I think it's episode 6 where I like really talk about how I realized there was an issue because for a while I didn't, or I couldn't name it. Even though it's been like followed me basically my entire life, only this year have I realized how bad it was, how toxic it's been. Around like late May. And so both of those situations involved were a little like more painful in that both of these people, I was a lot more emotionally invested and a lot more closer. And so I said, you know what? I also can't have these situations tying me down, weighing me down. I'm going to surrender it like I did the other situation. And I know this may take a long time. I don't know what this looks like. I might have to reach out to them. I might have to write a letter. I might have to do all this stuff. I don't know. But you know what? It ends today. And so I surrendered it to the Lord. And he... Actually, before I even prayed, I'm just thinking about this. He was working on me in the area before I prayed that prayer. Sorry. I've been praying all this time. But he was giving me some considerations that I honestly never really considered about how to kind of look at this situation. And I'm like, that really does actually help a lot to consider it, like maybe from their perspective or from a not so like personal perspective, from like a at large perspective, if that makes sense. Like for instance, when it comes to like, talked about this before, but the divide with like the older generation and the younger generation, baby boomers and millennials, baby boomers and Gen Zers. One thing is that they lived completely different lives than we do. And they've communicated or learned to communicate in completely different ways than we do. And it's almost, I don't want to say it's like we're speaking two different languages, but it can be that way in times, they just don't have like a capacity to understand a lot of like the mental health stuff and emotions and all that stuff. And I don't mean they don't have the capacity, like they can't. I just mean like it's just not like an automatic with them. So anyways, he was showing me this kind of stuff before, and then I eventually just said, you know what, I have got to get free from this. I put it before the Lord, and wouldn't you know it, I prayed sincerely. I said, just like you did it for me that one time, you got to do it for me this time. I can't be carrying this around on my heart. The very next day I woke up and my heart was lighter. And a thought about the one of the conversations I had with in one of the situations came back to me. And typically, if a thought comes, if I'm strong, I'll take captive. But that doesn't mean it's not going to come back up at another point in time, you know. If I'm weak, it can make me spiral. I acknowledged it, like, in the sense of, because I think I was in the middle of prayer, but I was praying and then I said, like, the thought came and then I'm like, you know what? I don't have time for this. And I just was just like, let me keep praying instead of getting wrapped up in that thought like I typically would. And I kept praying for like a minute and then I said, wait a minute. Wait 1 minute here. Wait a minute. Did I just really acknowledge that? And like not give in? What? Did you hear me? I was like so shocked. So it was like a spirit of praise just came over me because I realized like it was so different. Both situations, they were so different. It was like the healing made itself known on a heart level, on an emotional level, not just logically like I should be over this or I want to get over this or whatever the case is, but actually like emotionally, like I feel a sense of freedom. So I praise the Lord. But one thing that he showed me was that you had been telling yourself you were healed for a while and you weren't. And you were just telling yourself that. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. So I had to come to a place of acknowledgement, of course, and then that's when he could really do work in me. So within that, he also showed me signs that you're not truly healed. And I hope this will help someone. So let me just get into it because I've been yapping a lot. So number 1 is hanging on to the past. Hanging on to the past can look a little bit different for people because it could be like literally extreme and that's all you talk about and you can't get over that. Or it can be, you know, kind of like in my situation where things would just come up and I'd be reminded of that situation, reminded of that person, reminded of that conversation. And it was as if I was being brought back to that place. It really was just a level of me hanging on to the past, really, truthfully, because it's like, wait a minute, this is not a current offense. What's going on here? This isn't right. This can look like a personal thing, obviously, like what I just explained in my situation. Or it can look like when someone wants to give advice. I don't know if I mentioned that I did a recording of this and I didn't like it, so I deleted it. I can't remember if I mentioned it in this one or in the other one, but I know some people don't struggle with this kind of stuff as much as others, as much as like me, for instance, but I believe that we tend to, as human beings, we tend to look at things with a negative lens, and it is also harder for us to let go of things that are negative. I believe that we all also struggle with staying present, especially nowadays. We have so many things pulling on our attention and mentality and all this stuff, emotions, all that I think it's a little bit difficult for us to stay present. And this combination is not good, you know, tending to think about things negatively and think about the past is just not good. So even if you don't particularly struggle with this, maybe mindfulness is something that is still a difficulty for you, and that is such a game changer to have a mindful lens. But anyways, so hanging on to the past can be personal, or it can be someone giving advice. And what this can look like if it's someone giving advice, this is actually a really, really common thing, is when someone says something like, well, it happened like this for me, or your situation sounds exactly like mine, so this is how, it actually is, blah, 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 or something to that effect. Many of us, probably most of us, have experienced someone talking to us in that way at least once. Now, depending on your trust level with that person and the situation, maybe it's good to listen to them. You know yourself enough, hopefully, and that other person enough, hopefully, to know, this is worth it, or maybe not. But if someone is speaking from that lens, generally speaking, from that perspective, don't walk, run. This is something that the Lord has shown me that, well, in general, people tend to project. And because most people actually aren't fully healed, they don't have that freedom aspect to their healing. Most people speak from a place of a half wound. And they speak from a lens of the past, of hanging on to the past. When someone tells you, well, it was like this for me, well, it was, I went through this and it sounds similar to your situation, blah, 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 so this is what's up. They're literally telling you, I am not fully healed because I can only see it from my perspective. I cannot give you objective advice. This is so, 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 so important. And this actually was the foundation for a lot of the issue that I had with in this one particular situation that drove me to even bring it to the Lord and say, like, look, I need healing, because this person was speaking from a place of the past and from their perspective that, while it's valuable to hear other people's perspective, when it comes to wanting or needing advice, or even just having someone close, at least for me, I don't know how you feel, but if you're going to weigh in on my situation, I need you to be as objective as possible, because I don't need to be taking on your issues, your traumas, blah, 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 and then trying to have to sift through, is this actually for me? Is this not? And then the injury that comes along with it. People who speak like that are not fully healed. So my advice to you is, if someone starts speaking like that, you just, nope. I appreciate it, but I'm gonna have to shut this down. No, thank you. I personally have been there, and I've seen other people be put in an even worse place mentally, emotionally, whatever, because someone is speaking from a lens of only their perspective. And then they start giving advice from that hurt place. And it's actually something that the enemy can use. In this example, I remember, so I was having this conversation with this friend, and she was asking me like about a situation that she had went through a similar-ish kind of story, kind of. And before I spoke to her, the Holy Spirit actually warned me. I was a fool, but the Holy Spirit actually warned me and said, do not give into this conversation, or something to that effect. I can't quite remember. Now, this was last year, so I was a plumb fool, but I didn't listen. I should have listened. I don't know why I didn't listen. And that single-handedly caused that conversation caused a lot of destruction. Yeah, I think back on that, and I'm like, oh, he was trying to warn me because he knew my heart, and he knew where I was at. And he also knew, like, the enemy can swoop in at any time if you're someone who is not fortified in the things of the Lord. You can even be a Christian. definitely you can be a Christian. And he can speak, he can put words in someone's mouth and they speak from the perspective of the enemy with unaware, thinking, they'll just say some of the most heinous stuff sometimes, and it's like, what? Like, why would you even say that kind of a thing? They were infiltrated. Not always, but sometimes. And the biblical example of this would be Peter, telling the Lord, "You're never gonna die." Like, don't say that when he's talking about going to the cross. And on the surface level, it sounds really nice, but then Jesus turns to him and says, "Get thee behind me, Satan, for you do not like the things of God." And it's like, how did he know? That's a whole other thing. But my advice would be to not listen to someone with that lens, because they're also telling you that not only are they not healed, but they also don't have, how do I say this? If someone isn't healed, they will see things in a very skewed way. Again, they can't look at things objectively. So what'll end up happening is they're being able to look at something with a realistic lens it's tainted. That's a problem. When they can't see beyond their own situation and they speak from that lens, be careful, especially to children of God. But I would say that to anyone, but children of God especially, because that's where the enemy honestly can come in. Let me stop hollering though. Having a visceral reaction to that person, to something they said, something they did, I want to make it clear that obviously if someone hurts you, like, it's not bad to like be offended. Like, you can definitely be offended. Like, that's a normal like human reaction, right? But when you think that you're healed or want to be healed, but these signs are still there, excuse me, that's when it's a problem. Because, if you want to like feel what you need to feel and unpack your feelings on the situation, you can do that. But then there's a time where you have to say, okay, I'm done. Like, with hanging on to that, I really need to like move on. So if you're having a visceral reaction, like, an example would be like, oh, I don't talk to that person anymore. Like, I'm good now that they're out of my life. Something like that. I see people say that kind of thing all the time. And it's like, you're not healed. You're not healed. Oh my gosh. You'd probably, if you were in a position where you needed that person, and the Lord will do this, where someone who mistreated you, he may bring back into your life for their healing, for your to teach them a lesson and for your healing, or vice versa. But if they had to come back into your life or wanted to come back into your life, you wouldn't even be able to handle it. Now, of course, there's situations where you should not invite someone back into your life, but I'm just saying in general, like, nowadays in this age of ghosting, people just, whatever, you don't exist anymore, and I'm good, but you're not good. You're not good. Number 3 is someone who speaks toxic positivity. My understanding of toxic positivity, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's when you try and apply positive ways of thought to a situation where you're not, it's actually invalidating. It's not even like, it's like when people say like, okay, like, I'm upset about this over here. Well, people in Africa don't have food. So, it's like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, that's sad, but that doesn't have any immediate bearing on my situation. So it's very invalidating and dismissive. people will often speak from this lens, especially when they are wanting to give advice, especially when they are trying to, help you, and they don't even realize it, but they can say stuff like that, and it's like, now you just made me feel guilty, now, like, you haven't done anything for me in my situation. You haven't helped at all. Maybe their heart's in the right place, maybe it's not. I have no idea how to unpack that, nor do I care to, but it is a sign that if someone is giving that advice, that they're not healed, or if you yourself are speaking to yourself in that way, like, oh, it could be worse, and that's it, you probably aren't truly healed. Number 4 is, if you've developed, oh, this is a good one. If you've developed bitterness or indifference. So I kind of spoke on this when I said the thing about, like, you don't want to deal with that person anymore, blah, blah, blah. And again, you got to know, like, what situations actually call for kind of like cutting someone off, or versus, maybe you kind of overreacted, or maybe there's something that can be fixed here, or something like that. You have to be the judge of that. But actually, you should really surrender it to the Lord, because there are some people that offended you, hurt you, and you want to cut them off, and that's not the Lord's will for you. And actually, you can find yourself in a very dangerous place spiritually, because they may even be a ticket to your blessing, or who you need to bless, or something like that. I'm thinking about the story with Joseph. Like, he could have said, look, y'all who sold me into slavery, y'all didn't believe me when the Lord spoke to me, all this stuff, I'm not doing nothing for y'all. He could have taken that disposition, and I guarantee you the Lord's wrath would have turned to him. Because God's looking at it like, well, I've blessed you. I've put you in this position, and I put you in this position to help them, like, and I've forgiven you. Why can't you, show that to someone else? Why can't you, get over it? Basically, not in the sense of like he doesn't care, but just, I'll just say, like, when it comes to someone hurting you, oftentimes we think it's justified to either lash out in the same way or worse, or become indifferent or something like that. But he wants to heal you. That's actually how he's looking at it. He wants to heal you. He doesn't want you to stay in that place of bitterness, of indifference. And if you choose to, now you've just offended him, because from his perspective, it's like, it's gonna sound kind of bad, but like, it really doesn't matter what anyone does to you. He is concerned and cares about how you react, what's within you. Someone said it really beautifully once in my Bible study class, like, it doesn't matter what anyone does. He cares about you so much that it's like, how is this affecting you? And I'm like, oh, I love that so much. That's a really nice way of putting it. But it's also true, too. He cares about, okay, is this something that's gonna start to form as bitterness and gonna destroy you? Because that's all, has no effect on that other person that actually, like, did the offense. Like, they've come and gone, but you're still stuck on it. So now you've got a heart issue that needs to be fixed. And never mind, the evil that you give yourself into when you carry around bitterness, when you carry around resentment and all that stuff. So, yeah. I hope that made sense, though. Point number 5 is, I do not understand what I wrote. I'm gonna have to come back to that because I do not understand, Lord. I think I'm gonna have to come back to that. I do not understand. I wrote spirit of anger or worry, but I don't understand how that applies to here. I really don't. Um okay, I'll come back to that. Point the pointing the finger. That should be obvious. That shows that you're not healed if you point the finger, like, you know, um when you've really been healed by the Lord's hand, it is actually difficult to look at someone with the same level of anger, bitterness, resentment that the world would operate in, because it's like you've been, even almost the memory of what happened, it can't compare to the Lord's healing touch. It's like, oh, we got to get rid of that. Like, and it just works in a way that it just eradicates it. So it's like you can't even operate in the same way. So if you're pointing the finger at the person, or actually in general, it doesn't even have to be a specific person. It could be like maybe like a group of people. Maybe someone wronged you. Maybe someone, you had a bad experience with them and now you're maybe racist. Maybe, you just don't, could be like young people looking at old people looking at young people. It could be anything, but it also could be a group. If it's very easy for you to point the finger, then there's a lot of pride built up, because I guarantee you, just as that old saying goes, if you're, what is it? When you point one finger, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. That is so incredibly true. You will not feel the need, you won't have the capacity to point the finger when you get the stronghold of God in your life. Like, you will either see it from the perspective of, oh, well, you know what? I also could have been better there. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to, say that. So, or you'll just say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Dang, I'm really irritated about that spirit of anger versus worry. Or not versus, but and worry. Oh, okay. Okay, thank the Lord. I was like, that's like kind of embarrassing. He gave me a point and I don't have any understanding of it. So it's kind of simple, actually. Wherever there is someone who operates with anger, wherever there's someone who operates with worry, there's a wound. There's something that isn't healed there. It could be towards a specific person, could be groups, it could be just in a general sense. Like, someone who's really anxious, someone who's really worried. Maybe they had something happen to them. Maybe they were just in an environment where, they were always on edge or something like that. I know a little bit about this. That's not good. You're not healed. That's a sign that, there is something really amiss deep, deep down. Offense. This is point number 7, offense. So I mentioned earlier that it's okay to be offended, and it is okay to be offended, but we also have to remember that verse that says, you've heard it said, I think it's in Matthew 5, it's either 5 or 7, I can't remember, I'm sorry, but it says, you've heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the cheek, turn the other cheek to them. If they force you to go a mile, go 2 miles. That verse. That was, I don't have full understanding of it. I mean, I know there's more revelation there than what meets the eye. Because to be honest, it's a little bit confusing. It almost sounds like we're supposed to be passive. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that because I don't want to get off course here. But there is one thing that I do understand about that verse. And in general, when it comes to spiritual stuff, if you are either an easily offended person or you operate with offense, or you, well, yeah, I guess easily offended and operating with offense is the same thing. Like either everything bothers you and or you also have a hard time letting it go. Typically it would be like they would go together, you know. If everything bothers you, you also have a hard time letting things go. You can have offense and it be natural, you know, a natural like disposition. I think there's even a verse talking about Jesus being offended, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that. But there's a natural level of offense that, you know, we have when we feel like we've been hurt, lied to, all that kind of stuff. However, when it's an everyday occurrence, something bothers you every single day about so and so or that group or whatever the case is, and you have a hard time letting it go, it's actually a spirit afflicting you. And this is a major mental health issue that we have going on right now. Everyone is so sensitive about everything. Lord help us. We're just overly offended, and it's not even, it's not like rational. Like it's like you can't exist and be so offended by anything and everything. You'll like always be in tears, always be up in arms about something. It's just insanity. But yet this is being normalized, unfortunately. But that way of thought is being normalized to kind of be overcritical of everyone and everything that is said and done. But a spirit of offense is actually, I don't believe there to be an actual spiritual entity behind it, but it's a way of saying like your disposition is that of offense, and spirits can take advantage of that. They can say, oh my gosh, can you believe, you know, he said that to you? Like, who does he think he is? Like, you know, can you believe she thought that way? And this is my testimony. I used to be like that, to be honest. Being a very thoughtful person, if I don't take hold of that, I tend to kind of apply that to other people's thoughts as well, if that makes sense. Like I would think of something in a thoughtful way, so it's like, wow, I can't believe they, you know, it just, it, not anymore, but like I used to be like that. But and if I'm not careful, I know I can slip back into that kind of mentality, and it's like, no, you're just overly thoughtful. You need to calm down. Like, you know, they didn't really say anything with any sort of, you know, need to, you know, hurt you or desire to hurt you or anything like that. But it can actually be a spiritual affliction. It can be like a stronghold. And there's a lot of people who fall into this trap, and it will make you forever a victim. It will make you pretty much a toxic person because no one will be able to say anything, you know. It can make you very bitter too. It just lead to a whole bunch of stuff. So having a spirit of offense is really, really something that we really need to understand is not a good thing. Really not a good thing. You have to take captive your thoughts. You have to rule over your mentality and your emotions. You have to try at least. So where someone is very offended, you have someone who has wounds that have not been addressed, that, you know, they experienced and then they just kept going, and thinking that they're good, and meanwhile they're bleeding out everywhere, not even realizing it. Offense is probably one of the biggest things that could be addressed in this day and age, because it's bad. Like it's getting worse, unfortunately. So if you're a person who tends to have a very active inner monologue, or be in your head a lot, or very thoughtful or something like that, and you kind of find yourself a bit offended, please, 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 please don't give in to that. Fight against that, because that's not good. It will absolutely destroy you. There's a lot of stuff to be offended by, to be honest, if you allow yourself to be. There's a lot of stuff out there. You know, if I watch the news, I'm triggered. Like I will sometimes see a few articles on, social media, and that's about it, because there's always something to be upset about. But we can't be like this. This is also a really big issue with people who are very politically minded, typically. Not always, but typically they tend to be very, very offended people. Everything is an issue of, like, coming against them and their, what is it called? Social political views and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, you are a victim. You're literally speaking from a victimhood perspective without even realizing it. I digress. Let me not go down that route. So offense, not good. And you're not healed. Number 8. I don't understand this one either. If you can't bring your problems to anyone willingly. I genuinely, Lord Jesus, help me. I don't know what I meant by that. What you meant by that. Oh, okay. So, this is something we kind of see a little bit more with, like, men, or like with the older generation or something, but it could be anyone, is where you say, like, I don't talk about my feelings, blah, 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 or I don't talk about my problems with anyone's. That is coming from such a wounded place. If you are speaking like that, that is not a badge of honor. That is not, oh, good for you, you're so tough. Honestly, a sign of true strength is being able to submit when and where you need to do so. Because it's harder. It's easy, at least for me, for most of us. I think it's easier to just do things on our own accord, from our own perspective, whatever. It's difficult to say, okay, I'm stepping back. This is your domain. Have at it, to the Lord. Or in the biblical hierarchy of marriage, like woman to man, man to God, that kind of a thing. Whatever the situation calls for. It could be a boss, it could be anything. Like, it doesn't, there's so many examples. But if you cannot bring your problems to other people, like, literally you feel like, oh, I can't do that, like, you're still wounded. You're absolutely still wounded. You're not going to be able to get the healing that you need if you bottle it up and keep it inside. You can't fully heal yourself on your own. We got a lot of people who think that they can and who are half healed. and causing more injuries. So if you're speaking from that perspective or know someone who is speaking from that perspective, please, please pray for them. Pray for them. And please let that go if that's you, because that's nothing but a spirit of pride. You know, you don't have to let everyone in. Please don't do that either. You have to know who to let in, just like I was saying earlier. Not everyone should have access to you just because they want it, just because they demand it, just because, you know, you've known them for however long. Not everyone should have access to you in that way. But if you literally cannot ever talk about something that bothers you, that's a problem. And the last point is negative thoughts, or thoughts that can't be, what the heck did I just write? What? What does that say? That can't be, oh, recalibrated. Wow. I can read. I just wrote it so sloppy. But yeah, negative thoughts and thoughts that can't be recalibrated. Like, you can't rein in your thoughts. There's a wound there. There's a serious wound there, and most likely there's a spiritual element to it. Because when it gets to the point where it's like, you know, you're having a visceral reaction, you're taken out of this reality and you're back into the past or something like that. When it's no longer any amount of like logic, like, you know, someone hurts you and you feel bad and you can recognize that, blah, blah, blah. And depending on the hurt in the moment, you know, it might be a whole thing. It might be a whole thing for a day or two, a week, whatever. But after time, and depending on the situation, maybe just, you know, there was then and there, and then today's a new day. It just depends. After that, when it starts to really gnaw at you and become a thing that's just causing a lot of issues, even if it's just internally, now you're probably dealing with a spirit, most likely. And oftentimes the spirits that will exploit your feelings will not be ones that will actually like live within you. They will be spirits that will come and visit you and then go, and come and visit you and go. And that's why it's always kind of like this, especially when it comes to anger. When it comes to anger, there's no like spiritual entity behind anger. That's a specific type of spiritual entity that is messing with you in a way that, you know, you can't actually rebuke them. You can't actually cast them out because they're not like within you. You actually, I'm sorry, you can rebuke them, but you can't, rebuking them won't fully solve it, because they can just come back the next day. The only thing that will really get rid of it fully is just to stay focused on the Lord. There are some things, when we're dealing with spiritual stuff, some things need to be fought head on. Some things is just a touch from God, and that's all that's gonna, you know, that's all that's gonna happen. That's all that's gonna turn this situation around. So, you know, there's a few different considerations there. But yeah, if you're having negative thoughts, which most of us do, but if you're focusing on negative thoughts, there's probably a wound that needs some attention. I didn't realize this to be the case until the Lord actually healed me, kind of like what I was just saying. Like, I imagine my inner monologue looked pretty similar to most people's, and I had a lot of thoughts and I had negative thoughts, you know, And it's not that I don't now, it's just that I have a whole lot less. But really, we shouldn't even be having those. You know, it says in Philippians, is it 4:8? I have my Bible here. Let me see if I can get to it real quick. Where's Philippians? I can't see. But it says, you know, whatever is lovely, whatever is noble, whatever is, here we go. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So that's what should be consuming our thoughts. As children of God, that's what should be consuming our thoughts. We should be thinking about how good the Lord is, how he's been good to us, how he continues to be good to us, how he showed himself, oh, Jesus, how he showed himself true and real in our lives, how he came through in that time when you just did not see any way. And it just came out of nowhere and you're just like, what? How is this possible? When it dared you to even think about, could that be God? Like, you know, like that's what should be consuming our thoughts. Now, it's not realistic to always have that going on. It'd be nice, but it's not realistic. But it shouldn't be that we think in the same way that the world thinks. Our brain shouldn't be, you know, we should know his transformative power. That should be a personal testimony for us all. And I that is my biggest prayer for anyone watching this, for anyone who is a subscriber on this page. I truly have seen how the Lord can move, and I pray that you have the experiences that I've had, and even better and even more than I've had. But yes, if you're having negative thoughts and you cannot control them, you know, intrusive thoughts, all that kind of stuff, you're dealing with a spirit, and you just have to surrender to the Lord. That's the only way he's going to be able to calm that down for you, and fix it for you, turn it around for you. I hope this helped. I know this was kind of long. I'm sorry about that. But maybe this will help examine you, help encourage you to examine, are you really healed? Yeah. If you like this video, please do give it a like. If you didn't, just lie about it. It's fine. I won't tell anyone. Yeah, if you want to comment anything, feel free to do so. And if you would like to subscribe, feel free to do that as well. God bless you all. I'll see you next time. Bye.